The phrase happiest place on earth took a sinister turn that day at Disneyland. I'm just an ordinary guy, right? A lover of all things amusement parks. The smell of cotton candy, the sound of laughter and joy, the thrill of roller coasters, it all fascinates me. So naturally, Disneyland was like a dream come true. As I walked through the gates that day, the air was filled with the sweet aroma of freshly popped popcorn. Kids were running around with their Mickey Mouse ears, their faces painted with wide smiles. The cheerful music from the parade echoed through the park, and the sight of Cinderella's castle was just as magical as I'd imagined. On the surface, it was a scene straight out of a fairy tale. But as the day wore on, things started to feel off. The once comforting sounds of laughter began to echo strangely in my ears. The vibrant colors of the park seemed to lose their luster, replaced by a dull, eerie hue. It was as if the joy had been sucked out of the happiest place on earth, leaving behind a hollow shell. I shook off the feeling, attributing it to the heat and the crowds. I mean, it was Disneyland, right? What could possibly go wrong? I couldn't have been more wrong. The sun was starting to set, casting long, creepy shadows across the park. The once bustling crowd had thinned, and an unsettling silence had fallen. The air was heavy, almost suffocating, and the hair on the back of my neck stood on end. The magic of Disneyland had morphed into something much darker. I decided to head to one last ride before calling it a day. A ride that, unbeknownst to me, was not listed on the park map. A ride that was supposed to have been abandoned years ago. A ride that would turn my dream visit into the most terrifying experience of my life. Little did I know that my excitement would soon turn into a nightmare. There it was, an eerie, abandoned ride nestled in the heart of the park. An oddity, really, considering how everything else was bustling with joy and laughter. But this was different. It was as though this part of the park had been forgotten, abandoned, left to rot. The silence was deafening here, the only sound being the occasional creaking of the signboard that hung precariously from a single rusty chain. "The Phantom Voyage," it read, the paint chipped and faded from years of neglect. The ride itself was a ghostly sight, covered in a thick layer of dust like a relic from a bygone era. The once vibrant colors now dull and faded, the once shiny seats now tarnished and worn. It was as if time had stopped here, leaving behind only a chilling reminder of what once was. The stillness was unsettling, the air heavy with an unspoken dread. Yet something about it drew me in. Maybe it was the curiosity, the desire to uncover the unknown, or maybe it was just the thrill of the adventure. But whatever it was, it pulled me towards the ride, like a moth to a flame. I felt an inexplicable urge to explore, to delve into the depths of this forgotten attraction. I wanted to see what secrets it held, what stories it could tell. I wanted to feel the adrenaline rush, the thrill of the unknown. As I moved closer, the silence grew louder, the atmosphere heavier. The creaking of the signboard echoed in the stillness, sending a shiver down my spine. The closer I got, the more I could feel the eerie energy that seemed to radiate from the ride. It was as if the ride itself was alive, watching me, waiting. But I wasn't deterred. I was drawn in by the mystery, the allure of the unknown. I wanted to uncover the secrets that this abandoned ride held, to peel back the layers of mystery that shrouded it. And so, with a determined step and a racing heart, I approached the entrance of the ride. Unaware of the horrors that awaited, I stepped into the eerie silence of the abandoned ride. The air turned cold and I felt an inexplicable presence around me. It felt like someone or something was watching me, observing from the shadows. The silence was deafening and every little sound was magnified. Even the rustle of my jacket seemed to echo in the darkness. As I walked deeper into the abandoned attraction, the strange occurrences began to intensify. I heard whispers, soft and distant at first, like a breeze rustling through dry leaves. But as I continued to explore, the whispers grew louder and more distinct. They seemed to come from all directions, enveloping me in a chilling symphony of ghostly voices. I couldn't make out any words, but the tone, it was unsettling. Then came the cold spots, pockets of icy air that would make the hairs on the back of my neck stand on end. It was like walking through invisible walls of a freezer. One moment, I would be in the ordinary, slightly chilly air of the night, and the next, I was shivering uncontrollably from a cold that seemed to seep right into my bones. The apparitions were the worst part. Out of the corner of my eye, I would catch glimpses of shadowy figures. They were barely there, like smoke against a dark background, but they were there. I would turn to look and they would disappear, leaving me questioning my sanity. The fear was a living thing inside me, growing with every whispered word, every icy chill, every spectral figure. It was a gnawing sensation in the pit of my stomach, a dread that made my heart pound and my palms sweat. I felt like a prey, hunted by unseen predators. The abandoned attraction was supposed to be a place of joy and laughter, but all I felt was a growing sense of dread and unease. I was in a place where I wasn't supposed to be, disturbing something that should have been left undisturbed. The whispers grew louder and the air colder. I realized I was not alone. I never thought I'd be running for my life in Disneyland. The words tumble out of my mouth in a panicked whisper. I was desperately trying to leave the abandoned ride, but it felt like the exit was moving further away from me with each passing second. It was like one of those nightmares where you're running but not getting anywhere. The air was thick with fear, and I could feel my heart pounding in my chest like a jackhammer. The once cheerful music of the attraction now seemed to echo ominously in the empty halls, each note a chilling reminder of my isolation. Suddenly I heard footsteps behind me. At first they were faint, barely noticeable over the sound of my own labored breathing. But then they grew louder, more insistent. I could hear them echoing off the walls, growing closer and closer. With each step my panic escalated. The footsteps were not normal, they were heavy and uneven, as if whatever was chasing me was dragging something. My mind raced with terrifying images of what could be behind me. I could imagine a specter, a ghoul, an apparition, or something far worse. I felt a surge of adrenaline. I pushed my legs to move faster, my breath coming in sharp gasps. The hallway seemed to stretch on forever, a never-ending tunnel of terror. The lights flickered ominously, casting long, dark shadows that danced and twisted in my peripheral vision, adding to my growing fear. I could feel the cold sweat trickling down my back, my hands trembling as I tried to steady myself. My heart was a drumbeat in my chest, each thud echoing my fear. It felt like time was slowing down, each second stretching into a minute, each minute into an hour. I was so focused on the footsteps behind me that I almost didn't notice the light at the end of the hallway. The exit, it was just there, within reach. I sprinted towards it with everything I had left, the footsteps growing louder, closer. I could feel my heart pounding in my chest as I sprinted towards the elusive exit. Just when I thought I was done for, I stumbled upon the exit. My heart was pounding like a bass drum, adrenaline pumping through my veins like a wild river. The bustling park was a stark contrast to the eerie silence of the haunted ride. It was like stepping from one world into another, from the cold grip of fear into the warm embrace of relief. The laughter of children, the merry tunes of the park music, the smell of popcorn and cotton candy filled the air. It all felt alien to me, a jarring shift from the ghostly encounter I had just experienced. I was a stranger in a land of joy, a survivor of a horror that no one else could see or understand. I was free, but freedom tasted bitter. It was laced with the residual fear that clung to me like a phantom. I could still feel the icy breath of the ghost on my neck, the cold dread that had filled me when I had locked eyes with it. It felt like a nightmare that had crossed into reality, a terrifying memory etched into my mind, never to fade. I looked around at the sea of smiling faces, lost in the joy of the happiest place on earth. But for me, Disneyland had lost its magic. It was like a beautiful painting with a dark secret, a song with a haunting melody. The joy was tainted with fear, the magic overshadowed by the ghostly encounter. I made my way through the park, the once familiar sights and sounds now foreign and distant. I was a changed man, marked by an experience that would haunt me for the rest of my life. I knew then that I could never return, never again set foot in Disneyland. The ghost had claimed it, turned it into a haunted playground. As I left the park, I knew one thing for sure. Disneyland was no longer the happiest place on earth for me. The magic was gone, replaced by a chilling memory of a ghostly encounter. Disneyland was now a haunted house, a ghost of its former self, and I was its unwilling prisoner trapped in a nightmare that had no end.